May he have dominion from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. May all kings fall down before him, all nations serve him. Welcome back to the Dominion Podcast, episode number 9. We're almost at 10. And by the way, I double-checked those stats. Last week I said we had like 250 downloads. That's way low. We're like over 500 now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Do we get a prize for that?
What kind of record would you get on the wall if you sold 500 records? The wooden plywood record?
Hey, I meant to tell you, they actually did send us a $20 Amazon thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
So if there's anything we need for $20 from Amazon.
We get some more of these microphone covers.
Yeah, mic covers.
Those are nice.
That will take
I just slobber all over mine. I probably got another week. I'll need another one. It's all crusted over.
We'll get back to throw them through the laundry with the socks.
Is there something that happens at the 10th episode? Like, is there some kind of
We throw a
celebration?
party is probably what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We should, yeah. We'll have a live studio audience that night. They can just sit and listen to us pontificate.
Yeah.
Or bloviate even.
Bloviate.
I could do some live music.
I would like that. Apparently, Ben is a fantastic piano player who never plays for anybody.
Scat, mainly.
I didn't know you could scat on a piano.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this week we're talking about liberty and human flourishing and Christian love, all wrapped up together. So, Alex, why don't you start us off on the topic?
Yeah, well, I thought, one of the, in light of our current context, one of the more concerning revelations of the past year has been the near total disregard for human freedoms. And it's, in one sense, you'd expect that from the world, but it's still startling when you bring up the fact that there have been restrictions on human freedoms, which are that's just obvious. That just is the case. The freedom to travel, the freedom to associate, the freedom to be with our families, the freedom to worship freely, the freedom, many things. When those are restricted, when you highlight that fact or bring attention to those things, there's almost no sympathy or concern whatsoever. And in fact, that the appeal or the recognition of that loss of freedom is viewed as selfish. Mm-hmm. And what's been most alarming, I think, is that a lot of, maybe the majority of Christians in Canada have adopted that posture, that we have no concern for the lack of liberties, the loss of liberties. And in fact, to complain about it or to raise concerns is to complain and is to be selfish and a whiner. And to me, this is very concerning for multiple reasons. We'll work through these, but not the least of which is people's well-being. The strange thing that's happened is that there's been a total disconnect between human freedom and human flourishing, as if you can have flourishing without freedom. And this is not the way that the majority of the world thinks, who doesn't experience these freedoms. That's why people come to our country, because they want freedom and the flourishing that it possesses. That human freedom is not a kind of, superfluous, add-on to things.
It doesn't just happen.
It doesn't happen, but it's not something that's nice but not needed.
Right.
It's the foundation of human flourishing.
Right.
So you can't say you care about human flourishing, and you can't say that you care about love if you don't also care about human freedom. Mm-hmm. And so I want to maybe take the podcast to just tell this narrative more according to Scripture, what the Scriptures say about freedom, and how does that relate to the well-being of our neighbors, which we ought to care about. How does that relate to the way that we love the Lord and that we express love to others, and kind of disentangle it from this selfish narrative that most people have adopted.
I wonder if kind of the readiness to give up the prospect of flourishing is partly due to us being so unacquainted with what it is to flourish. What is secular humanism? What is their definition of flourishing? Well, it's self-preservation.
88 years.
You sit at a computer, you play video games. It's hedonism. their offer of, it's making a lot of money, hopefully, doing what you feel, defined by, celebrated in,
Yes.
and, what kind of emphasizes your identity. And there's a general sense of kind of resignation where it's kind of like, well, is this it? Like,
Yes.
is this flourishing? And if I have to give that up,
Yes.
I mean, I'm just better on my own anyway. Like we need a whole conversation of what is human flourishing.
Yes.
Maybe that's another conversation.
We kind of started that last week, but that's an amazing point. That's a great point, Ben, because people are giving up freedoms because they think they are flourishing. They think if I give up all of these things, which have been central to human flourishing and the way that we've conceptualized that, but I can be safe, then I am flourishing. Mm-hmm. To give up my freedoms isn't to give up my flourishing. But what we're realizing is that isn't flourishing.
No.
That survival is not flourishing.
When your world has shrunk to, I still have my phone.
Yeah.
I'm still allowed a bank account.
Still got my big
I can
screen
still play
TV
my computer games and no one can bother me. Like no one has to bother me. I mean, that's great. That's flourishing, right? I mean, it's just such a suffocating.
Yeah.
But that's what you get. I mean, that's that's the heaven that secularism offers.
Right. And therefore the sacrifice is worth it.
Yeah.
That's a great observation. So why don't we talk about what freedom is? Because, if we're at a place where freedom is viewed as dangerous and slavery is a virtue, I mean, we need to back up a few steps. So I thought a biblical definition of freedom, or liberty, which is not the same as licentiousness. A Christian view of liberty is the freedom to do what you ought to do.
Yeah.
Whereas a worldly view of freedom is the freedom to do what you want to do. And maybe this is, again, another piece of why people react against discussions of freedom, because they hear you saying, because this is what they say, this is what their worldview is. Freedom means doing what I want to do. And that's obviously not a good thing. And we would all acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. And it's self-contradictory. I mean, if you do what you want to do and Ben does what he wants to do and I do what I want to do, and that conflicts with one of our desires, then who wins? And it's a power game. So you can't actually all have that kind of freedom. Only the powerful can. But freedom in a biblical perspective is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
It's the freedom to do what you ought to do, which is why James calls it the law of liberty, and why even when we think through things like the Ten Commandments, implicit in those "thou shalt not" is upholding the freedoms and the rights inherent to other people.
And the promises of the law in the Old Testament were, if you do these things, you will live by them. It's like, if you do these, if you obey my law, you'll live. Yeah. If you don't, these curses will overtake you. And there's the giant list of, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't. Yeah. And it's not so much a threat. I mean, it is, but it's also just, that's the way it is.
Yes.
When you obey God, it's not magic.
Yeah.
He created things to run in a certain way. And when you obey him, that's where the flourishing is.
And the opposite of that, sin, in the Bible is slavery.
Yeah.
But the way we think of it in our unbelief is that we think that obedience is slavery and that sin is freedom. The freedom to do whatever I want. But in the scriptures, it's the opposite. Whoever continues to sin is a slave to sin, right? The word tells us. And so we need to step back a bit. And first, when we say freedom, we say liberty, we don't mean libertarian. We don't mean doing whatever we want. We mean doing what we ought to do according to the scriptures, according to a standard. And that's good for everyone.
Now, the world has no category for this, right? Because they don't have the worldview we do. They don't have the same anthropology we do, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have human beings depraved and sinful needing release from that, needing new hearts, right? We believe the beginning of liberty is the new birth. It's being born again. It's having the heart of stone taken out, right? But they don't believe that's a starting point. So I don't think they can get to the true understanding of it because they're not starting from the right place.
Yeah. Yeah, everything will be off because of that. So when we say doing what you ought, we really mean to love, right? Because Jesus said that the two greatest commandments are to love God and to love your neighbor, and all of the commandments hang on these. And the Christian's greatest duty is to love God, and after that is to love their neighbor. And this produces the greatest amount of human freedom. And I love the image, many people have talked about this, but in the beginning, it was a garden of yes and a tree of no. I mean, the commands of God are not burdensome. Living in the world that God created according to his will is a good thing. It's working with the grain, and it will uphold the greatest amount of flourishing for all people. And so that's what we mean by freedom. We're not here, libertarians, like stay off my lawn and I have no obligations towards other people, right. And it's my rights, my rights, my rights. That's not what we're saying.
No, and yeah, I like how you put that. No obligations. Like freedom, true liberty does involve obligations.
100%.
That's just the way God created. He created us all with responsibility in different spheres of our lives, and that has to play a part in the liberty. Liberty is not just staying by yourself at home.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when we think about, as we mentioned, sin is not actually freedom. Sin is slavery. We think about Titus 3:3. We ourselves were once foolish, disobedient, led astray, slave to various passions and pleasures, passing our days in malice and envy, hated by others and hating one another. So to live in unbelief before we're born again through faith in Christ, we're actually enslaved, it says, to our passions and pleasures, meaning what we want to do. And this makes sense on a philosophical as well as a practical level. I mean, you can't do that which you don't want to do, right? Yeah. And so what needs to change is your desires. And Jesus himself, I already said, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. But the good news is, if the Son sets you free, you'll be free.
Amen.
Indeed. And so where that leads us, when we talk about freedom, we don't produce freedom through legislation, first and foremost, foundationally, or just through political action alone. True freedom is only produced through the gospel, because only the gospel can free us from our slavery to sin, free us from our slavery to the devil, free us from our slavery to death, and set us free to actually live in a free way. And so part of our task moving forward as a church is to make sure we keep that gospel focus, that as freedoms are eroded around us, as our health unit, as our mayor, as our premier, as our federal politicians totally don't care about, if our neighbors don't care about, if they don't vote to preserve human dignity, we have to make sure that our efforts are focused on gospel revival. I'm preaching the gospel, because that's going to be what brings about a kind of people who cares and upholds and respects the freedom of their neighbor. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing right now in the lack of concern for personal freedoms is just unbelief. It's just, Why would we have a culture that has rejected Christ and his word and still love the freedoms contained therein? You just won't have both those things. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I've been convicted of that as well, just thinking, yes, the most important task we have is gospel proclamation, and you need freedom to do that.
Yeah, you do,
and that's why we insist on that.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, because we believe that's the only remedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ironic that so many hate conservatism and anything that smacks of traditional values, which ultimately can be traced back to the Bible. I mean, you don't have those values without that. But they enjoy the freedoms that has produced.
Yeah.
Right. And
for a little while longer.
That's right. Yeah. And in destroying those things, they will eat themselves eventually. They'll destroy any freedoms that they had.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many issues here. We could talk about history and how we haven't been taught properly. Like you said, these freedoms we have are because of revivals in the past. We think of all the Great Awakenings. We think of the Protestant Reformation. These are the things that have led our culture to the place where we have things like property rights and due process.
Yeah.
And, where the magistrate just can't come into your house and take you away or shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
So that stuff doesn't just happen. That's not, the blind chance of political evolution.
Human progress.
That's not human progress. That comes from somewhere, and it comes from Scripture.
You only affirm that if you actually know nothing about history.
Yeah.
Well,
which is where we're at.
We have. Yeah. I mean, we're so optimistic about the future. I mean, it's insane how we just, we're just with these technologies, and things are obviously just going to get better. And meanwhile,
a willful naivety.
So think, what was the last time our culture had this kind of positivity? Wasn't it like right before World War I? After all this,
reality came crashing down.
Yeah, progress. So it's going to come crashing down again. Hopefully, we'll learn from it this time.
Yeah,
and when you forsake the dignity of the individual being made in the image of God.
Yes.
That's the cornerstone of all, law and order and stable society and freedom and liberty.
Yes.
You don't have that. We're all just people trying to crabs in a bucket, right?
It's a collectivist mentality.
It's a collectivist mentality.
If you don't have the individual created in the image of God, it's just Spock, right? What's the greater good for everybody?
Yeah.
Well, that's why we have euthanasia. That's why, you're just a burden on society. I saw a movie the other night that was actually pretty interesting. It was called 1BR, One Bedroom. It was like a thriller type of thing. But it's this woman rents an apartment, and they end up brainwashing her into this cult. And at one point, there's an elderly woman who's part of their cult, and they're going to say goodbye to her because she can't perform in the community anymore. So they're killing her so they can make room in her apartment for somebody else to come in and get brainwashed. And I thought, isn't that like a powerful polemic against euthanasia? And it was, you could tell that's what they were getting at too. But that's kind of where we're at, right? It's like that collectivist. Can we all, is there like a common culture good that we're seeking after instead
and who gets to define that?
Yeah.
Well, and it's an anti-gospel because the gospel says my life for yours. That's what Christ did. He laid down his life for the sheep. But what collectivists, it looks like that on the surface, but really, like we said before, it's your life for mine. It's not actually, they say, well, we need to be willing to set aside our rights. But what you mean is he needs to be able to set aside his rights.
Yeah.
They need to be able to set aside their rights for the God of us. Whereas what the gospel says is that Christ, the individual, laid down his life for others willingly. No one took it from him. And that's what love is. Love doesn't take someone else's life for the greater good. Love gives up its life for others. And what that does, and this is kind of to bring it to the ground, this is why it's so concerning that so many Christians, one, don't give a rip about this, and two, actively kind of suppress those who raise these concerns, is that the gospel should produce the kind of people who care about other people. The gospel should produce the kind of people who care that the dignity and the worth bestowed by God on all of his creatures is upheld. What other kind of love is there? And foundational to that, as Ben said, is a recognition that they are created in the image of God and they have inalienable rights, as it were. They have things that are not bestowed upon them by the state. They're not. And that's what we're seeing today, is that when you have no God, the highest power becomes your God.
Yeah.
In our instance, it's the state. But if there's nothing above the state, then the state determines what your rights are. Mm-hmm. And the good thing about the rule of law and the supremacy of God, which our charter recognizes, it's not just a throwback to a bygone era. There's a specific purpose. And that is to say, we recognize these rights and freedoms as given to us by God. which means they can't be taken by someone else. They're not derived by vote. They're not derived by edict of the magistrate. They simply are. And they must, the role of the government is to recognize and uphold them. But we have this total inversion where those in power are acting as though they determine what our rights are. And that's, if you know that, that's really concerning.
That's the default setting, though, for governments.
Yeah.
And it takes people to stand up every generation and say, nope, that's not, that's not yours to dictate.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to want to do that no matter what the political system is. The government's always going to want to take more and more and more.
Yeah.
And if the people don't just stand up and say, no, you can't do that, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. Like you say, people don't care. They don't give a rip.
Yeah.
As long as you got your stuff and nobody's going to bother me, you know, then doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a severe naivete too.
Yeah.
Like to think that they actually do care about us.
Yeah.
It's sad that now the argument to, Christians aren't loving others is they would say, well, I'm loving my neighbor by keeping them safe, right? By that would be kind of the retort, right? If I kind of stay behind closed doors and distance from everyone, then that's how I'm loving them. But it demonstrates a profound, as Christians, we above all people should be able to understand, that mere existence is not human.
No.
And
man doesn't live by bread alone.
Yeah. But it betrays kind of where we've fallen to as a kind of broader evangelicalism, where we can say, I'm loving you just as long as by prolonging, theoretically your longevity, your life, and to heck with everything else, which is such that's.
It's an abdication of responsibility, for one, and I think that's part of it. It's easier just to say, I'm going to love you by not having anything to do with you than actually going and loving a person.
Yeah.
But if we were really reading our Bibles, we would see there's no basis for quarantining healthy people. If you had Ebola, it would be loving to not go be around other people.
Yeah.
But if you're healthy, there's no scriptural warrant for isolating from other people in the name of love.
And action isn't love. You can't read the New Testament.
Well, there's also no epidemiological warrant for it either.
Yeah.
Like, we've never done this before. This is the first time we've ever done mass quarantining of healthy people to help a pandemic, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't affected things. Yeah. But so what would you, the retort is also, well, this is political. You're being political, and the church, when you talk about rights and freedoms, you're being political, and we need to simply preach the gospel or something like that. But it's like, no, we're saying that if you preach the gospel, if you believe the gospel, then you should love your neighbor. And if you love your neighbor, you're going to care that their dignity is recognized. You're going to care that their freedoms that are central to their flourishing are upheld.
Yeah. Do you care that they have to foreclose on their mortgage because the government told them they can't run their business?
Yeah.
I'd be loving to help them out of that situation.
Yeah. Or that their cancer screenings were delayed 5 months and they've got a terminal diagnosis. Yeah. Or they've succumbed to addictions and
depression.
Suicide, all these things.
And it comes. We don't think deeply. We haven't been raised to think beyond the first kind of few inches of issues. So, we get our answer, right? We get our answer. Oh, I'm staying home. I'm keeping everyone safe. That's a loving thing to do, and we kind of stick with that.
Yeah.
And there's no real impulse to be going, further out, further in, and actually getting to the root. That's the Romans 13 thing, right? It's like you read it, you have kind of a general impression of what it says, and that's just what you're content.
Yeah.
And it's convenient as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, any ideological thinking is reductionistic. It's a simplistic answer. It's a simplistic way of looking at the world and solving its problems. This is the biggest or only problem in the world, and therefore this is how we'll solve it. And that's just folly in the Bible. You don't seek out wisdom. You don't seek out understanding like a wise person. You retreat to your presuppositions. You close your ears. You don't get outside opinions. You don't hear the other side. You stay with your simplistic understanding of things.
I think that's been the concerning thing. Even, respected Christians in institutions who should be thinking and who should, above all people, be open to discussion and being proved right or wrong and growing, right? That's the Christian life is never static. We're supposed to be growing in the knowledge of the Lord and progressing in sanctification. And yet somehow when it comes to our knowledge and our ability to discern, it's like our powers of discernment are just blunt. And you read some of these guys, it's like, have you read anything the past few months? Like you're still dealing with issues.
Like it was last March.
Yeah.
I feel like you mentioned, the charge of being political. Like, we're being political because we're talking about freedom. Well, those people are the ones being political because they're just towing a party line.
Yeah.
And if they're not engaging with the arguments from the other side, then you're the ones being political.
Yeah.
Because there's clearly, there's a political aspect to this. It's being foisted on us by politics.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how you can deal with this without that coming into play.
Yeah.
And you're right. It starts with the gospel.
Yeah.
But that has political implications.
Love is like gospel has implications of love.
Yeah.
And love is not indifferent to the indignity suffered by people and to the lack of rights and freedoms that they are afforded. There's just no case. So I think, what this has revealed, we could say this about anything, is that there is a gospel deficiency. What we're not saying is there's a political deficiency in the church, that people need to be more libertarian or something. We're saying that there is a profound gospel deficiency in a lot of churches and a lot of people's lives, whereby they have these categories all out of whack. And we need a renewal. We need a revival in the churches. And we need genuine love to be manifest in people's lives, which will produce a genuine concern for their neighbor and their freedom. And we need to stand against this. And if we want to look down the road, like if you had looked at where we are now and said a year ago that we'd be here, no one would believe you.
No.
Like this started with 2 weeks to flatten the curve as a justification for the greatest restrictions in civil liberties ever, not only in Canada, in the world. And there was a case to be made for that. And I would be more cautious looking back now that I know what I know and say, whoa, there's another way to do this. Like you don't need to put this into law and take away everyone's rights and all of that. But think of where 12 months has gotten us. And think of where we will be in 2 to 3 years. And by we, I don't mean just because I'm upset about my loss of liberty. I mean, think about your neighbor. Think about especially those who don't have a job and tons of money and privilege, that it doesn't really affect them. Think to the majority of people, 60, 70% of small business owners who support public health care. Think about those people. Christians, we should be concerned about them.
So I guess the question is for the average Christian who doesn't necessarily have much influence or even a wide social circle. How do we as average Christians, promote the lovingness of liberty? How do we live it out? How do we
invite
how do we
someone
love
over
our
for
neighbor?
dinner?
Yeah. No, I think that's
just do normal human things.
Yeah,
like that. It jars people just to see people acting normal.
Yeah,
like you guys were telling us after the interment of your father, Alex. You came to Westmount for the ceremony, and you said it was like coming into normalcy after being out in this crazy place where everybody's got masks on and you're trying to mourn, but you can't even see people's faces, and then you come into this place. I think people will react to that.
Yeah,
and I don't know. There's this tendency that we all want to be able to change everything right away, and that's we get on Twitter and Facebook and we make a big post, and then everybody gets mad and you respond and it's a fight. But we can have more influence just with the people around us, I think, and that's where it's got to start.
Yeah. Well, the law of liberty, we need to not accept a new law. We don't accept a new standard that tells us you can be free as long as you have alcohol and video games and porn. We're just like, no, that's not free. That's not freedom.
No,
that's not
the
life.
definition of a slave.
Yeah, that's a slave. And so
You could do all those things in a 6x8 cell, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
can all do all those things in jail. That's a great illustration. So Christians need to say, no. What does God say freedom is? What does God say freedom looks like? What does the law of liberty look like? I'm going to do those things, even if the people around me say, you are against freedom, you are against liberty, you are against life, you're against human flourishing. I say, no, I'm not. I'm for human flourishing. I'm for the good of my neighbor. I love them, and I don't decide, and you don't decide what that looks like. God does.
So that requires, obviously, a greater biblical literacy. I mean, I think the profound kind of anthropological deficiency, we just don't understand what it is to live well and flourishing as human beings. So we just need to be immersed as Christians in the Word more and less immersed in CBC and global news and making sure our world is shaped by that. It also just requires courage, which I think, a lot of us still struggle with, to do something, even a simple act of having people over, and to risk this, the disapproval of your neighbor or your family member, or to risk maybe not being able to see them, right?
Yeah.
If they know you've been around people. Those are sacrifices, albeit small ones, that we just are unacquainted with. We don't, I guess taking up our cross, it goes back to that. In small ways before we get to bigger ways.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that is big stuff, though.
Oh yeah, no, it is, and that's.
Yeah.
Do you have a text you wanted to read there?
Well, I keep flipping to different texts, and then the conversation swerves.
Right.
But I'm just thinking of Romans 12.
Yeah.
The first couple verses. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Like that's everything. Our everything is a sacrifice to the Lord. Not just our time on the internet, not just our time at work or at church, but everything.
And as we do that, that promotes freedom, right? We offer a sacrifice of our love, of our life, of our obedience, of our worship to God. And that's what it means to live free.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you lose everything.
Yeah.
I mean, can you think of a more bankrupt individual than Paul? Literally just sleeping on the roads at nights, terrified he's going to get robbed and, shipwrecked and off, just totally dependent on the generosity of churches. And yet you read the New Testament, he's exploding in doxology frequently and, counting it such a privilege to be able to witness to the gospel of Christ. I mean, he's got it. And, seeing that for ourselves, the riches in Christ, so that if everything is taken away, we're still rich. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, it's scary, but we definitely need to go there, and we may end up going there sooner than later. So hopefully we can all really immerse ourselves in, what the Bible says about love and freedom and how that plays out. I mean, we didn't really get into too many of the texts tonight, but maybe we could all go home and read Romans 6, Galatians 5, some of these texts that speak of slavery and righteousness and that sort of thing. And
what would you guys say to the Christian? He's in a church. Maybe he's feeling outnumbered, perhaps. Maybe the teaching isn't great, or he's not being taught to be immersed in the scriptures, or maybe they feel alone. Are there? Because I think there's a lot of there's Christians in that position.
Oh yeah.
Not just in Peterborough, but I'm thinking all over Canada and the world, and they're surrounded by kind of the party line. And do they love people best by staying in that? Where do they go? Where do they go? What do they do?
Well, I think where do they go depends where there is to go.
Yeah.
And it depends, obviously, there's a lot of details surrounding that, but a few maybe theoretical scenarios. There's a difference between a church who there could be reasons why, like say you have a church where the majority of people are 75 plus, right? But those people could choose to stay home and isolate, and the church should choose to love them the best they can while they decide to do that, online services and safe visitations and these types of things, respecting that. But I would say if you're in a place where, your leadership is telling you that it is unloving to even desire Christian fellowship, and that they have bought the worldly view of what human flourishing is, if they have promoted a new law which promises freedom, which is just freedom from the remote possibility of a particular virus, that's a very different scenario. And if they condemn what Scripture requires, and if they require what Scripture condemns, that's a really different problem. And sadly, a lot of churches are there. I mean, as with any conflict, I would want to obviously go through a process with those in leadership and definitely pray for them and pray that God would change their hearts. But I mean, if you've been doing this for a year and your leaders actually think it's sinful to want to gather together, even in small groups, if they think it's sinful that the people of God meet together, given what we know about the virus now, I would say like you're in a very dangerous place. And to be honest, this has just been a very revealing time. Under the platitudes of love your neighbor, no one loves their neighbor. Under the platitudes of keep people safe, no one cares about keeping people safe. They care about looking like they care about those things. And that's called hypocrisy, and it's leaven. And so I would, if I were in this situation as a Christian man, I'll just say what I would do. I would consider any and all options to get to a church that was prioritizing meeting together and obeying the law of liberty. I would prioritize that. I would change jobs. I would change cities. I would do any and all things so that my family could be under a ministry of the gospel and not a new law. They could hear Christ. They could be set free, and they could live free lives caring for the freedom of others. There's nothing more important than that.
We have
Nothing.
We have at our church right now a large family that drive 3 hours to get to service.
Wow.
From the other side of Toronto.
Yeah.
Because their church is going somewhere they don't want to go. They don't want to go with them. They want to do what they think is the faithful right thing to do. And the dad's looking for work here. They're looking for a house.
It's amazing.
They're willing to move and uproot the entire family.
And the thing is, that is entirely reasonable.
I think
there
so.
is
Yeah.
nothing
But it sounds
crazy
so.
about that.
Like
It
to
sounds
many
crazy.
people, it will sound crazy.
Yeah.
Like that kind of prioritization of a local.
But do you want to have a job and a safe job without having to find a new one, and then worry about your kids' education not getting a proper biblical education?
Yeah.
Or would you rather move, maybe take a little less money, and know that your kids are going to be well trained in the church and
KCCS.
it's entirely reasonable. Yeah, KCCS.
That's
Where
right.
else would you go?
We just a conflict of interest here. Full disclosure: we're all on the board of KCCS, Kawartha Classical Christian School.
Proudly
Excellent.
so.
Yeah.
Yep, proudly so. So yeah, I mean that does sound crazy to people, but to me that sounds reasonable.
Oh, absolutely. It's reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's some pretty heavy stuff today. That's our truth segment, bloviating for like 40 minutes.
Now we get
there,
onto
I
the
guess.
falsehood segment.
That's right. No, now we're going to talk about something. It's actually good and beautiful. I didn't even put a beautiful segment on last week. Really sorry about that, folks.
It's okay.
I'm here. I'm hoping my beauty kind of exudes through the
This is
microphones.
not a video podcast, so unfortunately people cannot relish your
Yeah.
rugged good looks.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy.
So this is a short story by a fellow named J.R.R. Tolkien. You may know him from...
I heard of that guy.
him. He's wrote an article,
Such
didn't he?
books as The Silmarillion and Tree and Leaf. No, Lord of the Rings. Everybody, come on. This is a book called Leaf by Niggle. It's a real short read. It's a really interesting read. It's about a guy who feels like his life... He can't accomplish what he wants to accomplish in his life. He's not motivated enough. There's not enough time. Too many distractions are getting in his way. So the book opens with this euphemism about him having to go on a long journey. It's talking about his death. And then so he's a painter. He's trying to paint for his whole life. And he ends up finishing one painting that ends up getting used to patch a hole in his neighbor's roof because there's a rainstorm. And the only thing that survives of his life work is this little leaf.
Yeah.
Now he's in heaven, and there's this scene where he sees something that reminds him. So here we are. Before him stood the tree, his tree, finished. If you could say that of a tree that was alive, its leaves opening, its branches growing and bending in the wind, that Niggle had so often felt or guessed, and had so often failed to catch. He gazed at the tree, and slowly he lifted his arms and opened them wide. "It's a gift," he said. He was referring to his art, and also to the result, but he was using the word quite literally. He went on looking at the tree. All the leaves he had ever labored at were there, as he had imagined them, rather than as he had made them. And there were others there were others that had only budded in his mind, and many that might have budded if only he had had the time.
I love that quote. I love that story, and I love that quote because it rings so true.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just so often, we start projects, we don't get finished. We realize we don't have the resources or the time to be able to finish them. And even when we do finish something, it's not kind of what we'd envisioned. And so many people laboring in vocations and, frustrated by bureaucracy and maybe lack of money to do their job. It's just so many things.
Yeah.
And it feels like, well, what a waste. Like if I don't get that done in this life.
And the beautiful thing about this is the real success in heaven is his personal relationships. And the things he thought he was bad at in life are the things he excels at in eternity. And the same thing with his neighbor who's there as well. And he gets a totally different view of his neighbor who he thought was bad at certain things but is now good at them, and vice versa. And so there's the things that you didn't think were, it's like storing up treasures in heaven. You don't even know you're storing them up.
Right.
All these little things the discipline we do, all the little things we're doing every day that we think it doesn't matter, they do matter.
Yeah. And don't grow weary doing good because they are.
That's right.
Well, God sees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a really good book. You could probably read it in 20 minutes. It's a real quick one. And it's in my personal library if you want it. Shoot me an email, Jeremy@thedominionpodcast.ca.
Don't give it to Al. He won't return it.
No, he won't. He's already read it. And I got to bring this home for my wife to read because it was on the nightstand when I took it. Anywho, anybody got any closing?
Read John 8.
John 8.
Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The son remains forever. So if the son sets you free, you'll be free indeed."
Amen. We'll see you next time on the Dominion Podcast.